Good evening and welcome to the second session of Business Class. I am Lanita Mitchell Blackwell, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce our facilitator for this evening, who you all know very well, Elena Zucker. I did the full rollout of the intros in the last session because she taught our first one on goals, particularly SMART goals. And I hope that you've had a chance to look at that bonus video that I sent out over the weekend on how to do your vision board, because it very much includes the information that Elena shared with us on how to set goals or write your vision in a way that they can be measured, attainable, and so that you can really know if you've been successful in accomplishing the things that you've laid forth. So tonight we're going to continue on in that vein, and Elena is going to share with us peer mentoring. So how to find those people in our industries, or sometimes with outside of our industries, but people who know where we're trying to go and what we're trying to accomplish, and how to make them care about us and what we're trying to do with our lives so that we can move forward and kind of skip all the hard parts. Well, not all, but at least most. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our presenter for the evening, Elena Zucker. Take it away.
Hi, everyone. I'm so delighted to talk to you all about this is really my favorite subject, and it's been a labor of love. I'll just give you a little background. This has been in a file drawer for many years, and I've been collecting a lot of research, but mostly the best research is boots on the ground that I have experienced myself. I guess that I sort of had a natural knack for this, and then I decided to teach it to other women. So let me just give you a quick overview. I know people like to know what's coming, so I'm going to give you a quick agenda of what I'm hoping to cover this evening. And then if there are any questions, I think there's an opportunity in the chat box, or people can write to me directly, and I'll be so happy to answer whatever you need. So what we're going to cover this evening is, what is a peer mentor? Definitions, what's the difference between a peer mentor and a regular mentor? And we have to, so some of you have been on our class number 1, as Lanita said, about goals, but I'm still going to just sort of harken back to some of those principles. And if you have not had a chance, please go and watch her excellent bonus video about vision boarding, because it's kind of a way to imprint your goals into your unconscious, so it's really engraved there. And then I'm going to talk about what skills and resources towards achieving that goal do you have. What skills and resources do you need? And then I'm going to talk about the contract. I've created a format so that you can formalize, once you find a peer mentor that you're happy with, you can formalize the relationship with a contract. Then we're going to look at where and how do you find such a person? And once you do, how do you communicate? Because like any relationship, communication is the key. And then there's a little bonus, which if you want to get down into the weeds of some of my research, there are a couple of charts. And let me just say that all the visuals that you're going to see will be downloadable at the end. So the only thing is, though, I do want you to have a blank piece of paper and something to write with, because there's one little exercise that I want you to capture your thoughts in the moment right now. Okay, so without further ado, let me move on. And let's look at what is peer mentoring. So a peer mentor is just like a regular mentor. And I know many of us women have had mentors, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But and they may be at the same level as you are, but the peer mentor may be more skilled or accomplished than you are in a particular expertise. So let me give you a quick example. I first discovered this idea when I began using it for myself. I met another woman, this was many years ago when I was in New York, who had many of the skills and experiences that I lacked. She was a psychotherapist and was really brilliant at group process. And I really had just graduated graduate school and I really didn't know that much. But I was very good at selling and marketing. So believe it or not, one week we were stuck overnight at her home during a blizzard, a snowstorm. And we started to kind of brainstorm and look at what skills she had and what skills I had separately and what we each needed from each other. And what we discovered was that we were kind of a fit. We each had skills and resources that we both needed. So we decided, we originally called this a loving kick in the cants, hence the name of the book, A Swift Kick in the Cants. And we agreed that we would do this very kind of crude contract with each other, and that we would meet once a week and share our ideas and our skills and resources. Like I did a little tutorial on how she could make a sales call. And we did a kind of a role play of me running a group. And we met every week very faithfully. And we discovered that within a couple of months, we had each accomplished almost all of our year-long goals. So we thought we were onto something. And we began teaching this process to other women. Mostly this began as a process for women because, you know, a lot of the self-help and become successful books talk about get a mentor, get someone who is senior to you, more experienced. Maybe it's a boss, maybe it's someone who is more advanced than you are in your profession or field. And some of us have had male mentors, and sometimes that comes with, shall we say, baggage that we don't want. And the other thing we found, or I found, is that a lot of senior women are, you know, super busy and really don't have the time or inclination to support other people. Some are very, very generous with their time, but we found that in a way it was devaluing. If you're looking for someone sort of senior and above, in a way you're kind of devaluing all the magnificent talent and resource that is right at your same level. So peer mentoring is basically a process. It's a system in which people identify skills and resources that they have and want, and then share them, offer to share them with someone who has the opposite set of skills and resources. So let's look at some of the characteristics and functions of what a peer mentor should really do for you. And, you know, in a way, it's very similar to those of a mentor. So a peer mentor acts like a teacher to help your developmental process. They can be a sponsor to use her influence in the organization or in the association where you might need entry. So it's like, this is my friend Lanita. I'm one of the executives of this organization. I've invited her as my guest for this evening. So that's kind of a sponsor. She can be a guide to, again, welcome you into a new milieu. Or she can be a role model. That is somebody that you aspire to be like. She can be a counselor or advisor. But again, as we'll soon see, this is quite limited. This is not your therapist or your best friend. It's a sort of strictly delineated role provided that you both articulate with each other. And what's also very important, and what mentors at their best, and I know that Lenita offers mentorship to a lot of women, is that this person is a true believer. She believes in you, believes in your promise, in your skills, in your dreams. So if you can find even one or two of those in a peer mentor, I would say that you're doing very, very well. But don't worry, that will come in a while. So I want to, for a moment, take a pause and talk about goals, because without the context of a goal, you may not know what you need a peer mentor for. So a peer mentor is always to help you in the service of a particular goal. So here you may want to take out your pencil and paper if you haven't already done your goals from the last session. So these are the most important things to ask yourself. And just for practice tonight, you can do it in any category. When we did the goal session, we looked at 13 different categories. So what do I want to achieve? When will I complete it? It has to have an end date. And how will I know I'm there? That means it has to have a measurable output so that you will know that you've achieved it. And that goes to the meaning of the model that we used for goal setting, which is the SMART, which is specific, measurable, applicable, relevant, and time limited. Okay, so that answers the question, how will I know when I'm there? Okay, now we're going to do a little exercise in a couple of minutes, and I thought I would fortify you with some of the kind of skills that you might identify that you already have and that you're going to need in your peer mentor. So let's just take a minute. These are very general, and actually in the book, A Swift Kick in the Cans, there's a whole chapter which is a skills inventory. But these are some general, and you may come up with things on your own. So this is just to give you a prompt to get your thinking juices going. So for example, you might be people-oriented and good at customer service. You might be a good supervisor of other people. You might be a good teacher or a good instructor of other people. Maybe you manage time well. Maybe you manage money and budgets well. Again, maybe a good manager, good at organizing people for different tasks. You may be good as a team player, maybe not a manager, but being a very responsible player of the team and supportive. You might be good at written communication or maybe technical expertise. Now, these might be, you might be marking to yourself things that you're either good at or you sorely need, like as exhibited a few minutes ago. Computer skills and technical expertise would be something in my need column. So other skills and expertise. Some people are very good at dealing with things or concrete things or projects or dealing with data, working with people. Others are very good at creativity and generating ideas, good at leadership, or good at influence skills or communication skills. So when you look at your goal, what I'm going to ask you to do now is, these are going to be instructions for the peer mentor contract. But first, you see I want you to, when you print it out, when you download the contract, which we'll see in a couple of slides, and print it out, I'd like you to either make copies of it or print a couple of copies of both pages of it. so that you can leave the original blank, because you're going to be, each of you two in your peer mentor pair are going to be writing some things, and then you're going to make copies of what you've written, so you both have both copies of it, just like a contract. So, but right now on a separate paper, like I asked you to get ready a little bit ago, just take the paper and just on the left-hand side of the top of the paper, write 3 of your goals, just randomly. And for this exercise, you don't have to write out the measurable or the time limited. Just write, you know, I want to expand my business by 30% by 2019, January 8th. Okay, so just something like that. You could say, well, what would that look like? Would that mean X number of more employees, Y amount of dollar volume of gross sales? So if you have a way to, how will I know when I'm there? It would be great to write that down. Okay. So out of those 3, I want you to pick one now, because we're only going to use one tonight for purposes of learning how to use the contract. Okay. Now, from the resources that we looked at before, and now I'm going to show them to you again. So in the service of the goal that you just identified, what are some of the skills and resources that you already have that will help you achieve that goal? Like maybe making time for it. So maybe you're good at time management. Maybe it's something that needs to be advertised online and you're very good at social media. Okay, so of the skills that I've listed here, what are some of the ones that you already have, that you're already very good at? So write 2 of those. Okay, and now, what are some of the skills that you really could use help with? Kind of like this program and what we said in a lot of our promotion letters, those of us who are here are already pretty successful. But, you know, we may have missed out on certain categories in our education. So similarly, now that you're setting new goals, you're reaching for new horizons, there may be some skills and resources that you don't have that could be holding you back. So now I want you to look at these lists through that lens. What are some skills that if you could find someone who could help you with that for free, you would be thrilled. Okay, so this is the general skills, and here we have some of the other skills. And you know, there might be a couple that you could think of that I haven't listed here. This was just a list to get you your thinking started. I just want to say, while you're writing this down, that, you know, in a lot of ways, this is like a barter. And, you know, barter is thousands of years old, and people have always been doing it. In fact, in my book, I have a chapter on barter, and I did a lot of research. And I found that it goes on for many, many, many years. And ancient tribes, until the Romans invented money, the name of my chapter is called How Many Cows for That Smartphone? Because when, you know, what's happening now in our economy, even though it's, you know, we hear reports that the economy is great, a lot of people are still struggling. And when times are difficult, that's when people do bartering. And that has been the success of a lot of the resource sharing services that we now have, like car sharing, like Airbnb, like Uber. So it's kind of a new twist on an old idea. We're using underused resources to capitalize on furthering a goal. Okay, now I would love to talk to you at length about barter, but in the interest of time, that's all I'm going to say about it for the moment. And I want to get to this contract. So these are the instructions for the contract. So I'm going to just show you what the first page of the contract looks like. So list your strengths and areas of improvement below. So what you can do is in these lines, I hope you can see my cursor, but in the first couple of lines, you can write, as we said, from the two lists or just from things that you can think of, what are some excellent skills that you have? And then further down here, you see where it says resources, I have and I need. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to just think now, and you could jot those down. And then, as I said, you can download this contract and make copies of it and fill it in as a form. So, but for now, just think of, let's say, 2 skills on the left where it says I have, and then 2 on the right where it says I need. So those would be what you're looking for from a peer mentor. Because now, once you find that person, you're actually going to enter into a contract with her or him. And I'm going to talk a little bit about where do you find such an angel, such a helper, such a person to help you in what you need. And when you do, here's where the negotiation comes in. This is where the barter gets hammered out. So here in the left is where you're promising what you will do for that person. And it doesn't need to be teaching them a skill, but it could be, I will direct you to 3 French teachers, or I will give you a very, very basic tutorial in Spanish. But, you know, I'm not going to spend endless hours every week teaching you. So one of the things about this that is very educational in terms of personal development, and especially for us as women, is to set limits on what it, because we do get enthusiastic. If you have something, if I have something that you want to learn, wow, I'm like really excited to offer that to you. And so we want to, of course, be enthusiastic about helping, but we also want to be very specific and cautious about what exactly we're willing to offer. And then you will is what is your partner going to do for you? So here is the barter, really. It's what I'm going to do for you and what you will do for me. And then you're going to have to hammer things out like, how often will you, quote, meet? Now, of course, you may not be geographically near each other. I have a peer mentor in Athens, Greece, and I live in Eastern Canada. And what we do for each other, we just kind of, after talking a long time, we worked out. And so here is what we do for each other. He is an expert on all things having to do with LinkedIn. And what he does for clients is he does a profile makeover and then helps you with the search engine optimization of the keywords within your description and all of that stuff. So with his help, I hired him at first to help me expand my LinkedIn universe and also to teach me some of the tricks that he knows. And he has asked me to help him he is now doing some public speaking. And so I have helped him with how to do his approach to speaking. And then also he's writing some articles and I've helped him with that. So, you know, this evolved over time. It really never started as, will you be my peer mentor? But I noticed even before I identified and gave this a name, that I was sort of doing it naturally. I seem to be having these barter kind of relationships with people because I do love helping people, and I love getting help. So let me now move to, and this is very, very important because you're going to have to deal with communicating with your peer mentor. And as I said, it doesn't have to be in person. It can be a Skype call. It can be by email, a phone call. I do recommend a Skype or WhatsApp or FaceTime because, you know, it does have more of a real conversation to it. But however you communicate, there are certain aspects about communication that I think are going to be useful. And so I'm just going to touch on these very briefly. But, you know, once you've created your contract with your peer mentor and you've started meeting, the what of your communication is the content about how you're progressing, what you're helping each other with. But the how of your interactions is the process, the manner in which you communicate in your relationship. For example, you might be frustrated with the number of times your partner has canceled or shown up late for a call or a meeting. Or you might feel the amount of time that you have given is not balanced, that it exceeds what you think you've gotten. So they may feel the same way. You don't know that. And so it's really important to have a skillful way to express your feelings and describe your expectations and how parts of the relationship may not have met them. So let me just talk about a couple of principles. Your feedback should be descriptive and not evaluative. So this is what I mean. Descriptive means when we had our last meeting, I noticed that when I was sharing about something that was going on, you interrupted and said, oh, that reminds me of something that happened with my husband. And I felt that we were getting off topic and I felt ignored. So you describe the behavior specifically and you describe your feeling state, how it made me feel. What you don't say is I felt you were rude. That's not a feeling, that's a judgment. Okay, so I hope that's clear. And again, it should be very specific. So that is important because unless you tell me specifically what it was that bothered you that I did or didn't do, I don't know how to fix it. And speaking of specific, it should also come very close to when it happened. So don't wait for resentment to pile up, you know, after 4 meetings or something, and then you kind of get really angry and explode. Deal with it very, very soon after it happens. And a phrase that is very common now, but I don't like it because whenever I hear somebody that I know say it, it means trouble, and that is, we need to talk. So I suggest that you phrase it in another nicer, more diplomatic way. And then again, the behavior that you're talking about should be under the person's control. So, you know, if they have a tic or they clear their throat or something that is not in their control, then, you know, you just have to live with it. There's nothing you can do about it. Finally, these 2 last ones, it should be solicited. And that's difficult unless you put in mechanisms to make that happen. So you could agree with each other, for example, to have a little section of your time together, maybe when you've done sharing what's going on with you and helping each other, that maybe you say, we have a little kind of post-mortem on how did it go? And that's where you could say, I noticed that X happened. And so you've installed it as a system, so it doesn't have to be like any big relationship breaker. You've already instituted it. And of course, it has to be well timed. You know, if the person has just lost a big contract or something personal has happened, well, of course, you don't bring that up at that time. And similarly, I just want to mention that when you're on the receiving end of, let's say, criticism or feedback, it's always good to ask for clarification, because to say, well, can you give me an example? What specifically did you mean? And it's really all, if you take the personal out of it, they're not really attacking you personally. We both want the relationship to go better. Okay, so I just wanted to mention that piece because, you know, it's an interesting relationship I have found, because it's not about friendship, but in a way it's more intimate than friendship, because you have made a solemn contract and signed it to be in each other's life, to help each other with some things that are very specific and maybe confidential. Maybe these are things you don't even share with those closest to you. So in that respect, I recommend you don't do this with close friends, because although, as I say, it can be very intimate, it has the coolness of really, it's just a business relationship. It may evolve into friendship, but I think that doing it with close friends is kind of a bit too loaded. I have not done this with close friends, but I'll leave that up to you. So finally, a little bit of how-to, and that is, you may be asking, where do I find such a person? And you know, it's not as difficult as it sounds, because once you know about this concept and you begin thinking about it, you'll find that, you know, prospects for this are all around you. And, you know, you can't have a lot of them, though. I mean, I suggest you start small. Otherwise, you'll just take up your week, you know, having these great meetings with people. So try one and see how it works. But here are some suggestions that I have about where you might find some. I like to call this a success buddy. It's kind of having an accountability partner. So, you know, especially if you're a sole practice entrepreneur, you may not want to bore your friends or spouse or family with all the different things that happened today or yesterday or whatever. And so, and nobody may care that you accomplished this week's goal. But if you have to show up for that Skype call, then you're accountable to somebody. And it really does work to have a really good deadline. So let me just talk a little bit finally about where and how do I find such a person. Well, there may be, even at your regular job, there may be people around who have different job descriptions or functions, but you know, there might be someone that you like and you might have noticed that they're very good at something. So they may be in other departments, and you might have an opportunity to approach them. Now, the thing is that you're going to have to be assertive and make the approach, because, you know, unless other people know about this concept, they're not going to come to you. I can pretty much guarantee that. So you'll have to sort of just, you know, buck it up and approach people. The other thing is, if you go to any training or conferences or professional development, you might be meeting people from different organizations, different departments, or even from different states or countries. And you're all learning together. So it's a great way to observe how somebody interacts with the instructor, with other students, and what skills or bright spots they might exhibit that you might like to have in your life. So it's a great way for you to just, you know, listen and watch. And then if you feel that they've met your criterion, then you might, you know, exchange emails and go from there. Another good opportunity would be work travel. This could be one of the best opportunities. Again, there might be a lot of interesting people. It might not even be, from this country. It could be international. But geography does not have to be a boundary. And then extracurricular activities, you might find people, at church or fundraisers or hobbies that you are interested in, and you may not have thought about it, but they might be a good candidate. And of course, the best for last is the world online. I like LinkedIn. I use Facebook a bit, but these days you don't have to leave the house to find tens, thousands, hundreds of thousands of people that you might consider as a peer mentor. And sometimes when I invite a person to be in my network in LinkedIn, I might say that we either have some interests in common, or maybe there are ways we can support each other. So if I word it that way, they don't know it, but maybe an offer to become a peer mentor is coming. Okay, so those are just some ideas, some of the ways that you might find a peer mentor. And I'm just going to move on to these now. This is a download. And I'm just going to go over it very, very briefly, because it's a lot of the research I did. And if you wanted to go down into the weeds of how I came up with this and how I compare a peer mentor to other helping relationships. Okay, so you see along the left vector is a peer mentor, how it compares to parent and child, siblings, friends, spouses, along the dimensions of power, competition, trust, dependency. What I like about this is that it's interdependent. What the purpose is to help growth and development of each. So, it's very democratic, it's very adult. The commitment is contractual. The balance of giving is reciprocal. The currency is skills, support, and resources. And, it doesn't have to be exclusive, because you can have any number of them, but I suggest you try it with one person first. And then this is what could end or threaten the relationship. Now, again, I'm looking at and comparing it to all these other relationships. And again, here we have more relationships, lovers, a mentor protege. As you see, it's unequal. A mentor protege is unequal, because the mentor is the giver and the mentee is the recipient. So it's an imbalance of power. Sometimes it's nice, but I like the reciprocity of the peer mentor. So there we have consultant, doctor, therapist, coaches. So these are all different sharing relationships and how they're each different from a peer mentor. You may not want to go into that much detail, and if not, then you can just skip it and don't download it. So that's all I have for today. I just want to review what we said we were going to cover tonight. And so let me go back to the first slide. And as I said, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to email me. I wanted to cover what's a peer mentor, what are the qualities and functions of a peer mentor, important to start with a goal, what are the skills and resources you have or that are out there, what skills and resources do you need, how to fill out the contract, where you might find a peer mentor. I did that before, and then the communication with the peer mentor. So that's all, folks. And now I'm going to end the slideshow so that we can go back to chatting. Okay, so let me find Lanita again.
So I am here. And I really hope that you all have really enjoyed this evening. Elena, thank you so very much. You are amazing.
My
And
pleasure. I'm
very
so
grateful
glad
to you.
that we did this. I'm just going to go back to the Zoom.
So our next course will be the second Tuesday of February. And we are going to have an amazing time talking strategy for your businesses. And of course, you know, you're going to get some free stuff in the interim, so be looking for that. Have a wonderful evening, and please, please remember that this works when you work. Beverly Green just asked, Elena, what is your email address? If you could.
Oh, for sure. Yes. It's easy for you at easyinfluence.com. And I'll be so happy to hear from you. And I hope you enjoyed it. And I would love to hear your questions.
Awesome sauce. All right. You all have a great evening. Take care.
Thank you so much, everybody, and enjoy.